original piece called Right Now. What was the first word you heard before you woke up today? What was the feeling that you fought, tried to make it go away? Be present, dear. Sit with your fear. Just be here right now. What was the song that you sang before they took it away? What was that thought that you had? You can't find the words to say. Just be present, dear. Sit with your fear and just be here right now. Be present, dear. Sit with your fear. Yes, just be here right now. Who were you then? Who are you now? Where have you been? Did you forget how to be present, dear? Just sit with your fear and just be you right now.
Good morning. My name is Todd Iveson. I'm the worship associate, and with Sue and Mark, we will be performing the service today. I am a short, pale-skinned man with short graying hair, and I'm rocking my Tommy Bahama Hawaiian shirt this morning. Most, if not all, of the world's religions practice meditation in some form. Many non-religious people also practice meditation. It seems everyone does it their own way. Some sit calmly in silence, while others chant alone or in groups. Some walk, others lie down. There are qigong forms and guided meditations. There's yoga pranayama, and the list goes on. Don't worry, we're not going to try to touch all of those today. What Sue and Mark and I will do is to share with you our experience with meditation in the hope that it'll help guide you to a practice that works for you. So, in the spirit of meditation, please make sure you are seated comfortably. Now, take a deep breath and then release it. us carry a burden of worry. Anxiety over the state of the world, worries about money, about our environment, our families, about peace and justice. May we trust that nothing will get worse for us putting that burden down for a moment. May we let go of what weighs us down. May we find that we can set down worry for longer and longer periods of time. In our experience of letting go, may we be open to the possibility that we need not pick our worries back up. May we find passion and strength to work for change where we have the power to do so, and to let go where we do not. If not forever, let us put down any worries or anxiety for our time of quiet. May we be in quiet together. Please join now in singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. You may rise or remain seated as you are most comfortable.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Jamila Batchelder, the Director of Religious Education here. I am a middle-aged white woman with long dark blonde hair and glasses, and I'm wearing a dark green dress with a dragonfly print. So many of you know I grew up Buddhist, and so I did a lot of meditation growing up. And one of my first meditation instructors was the Khenpo Tsultrim Rinpoche, and he once described to me meditation this way. He said, imagine you had a cup of water from the creek that ran through our meditation center, and it's all murky, full of sediment, but if you let it sit there, the sediment begin to settle, the little sticks, the little leaves, the tiny bits of silt, and eventually the water would become clear. And so in the same way, our mind that's full of movement and energy and thoughts and ideas and worries, sometimes it's all swirling around so much, so turbulent that it's hard to find clarity. And so if we can just sit still, our thoughts can begin to settle. And that's why, one of the reasons why we meditate. So to help visualize that, here at church we've made these mind jars, and I want to invite all of the kids to come forward and grab one. And there's more, I think, than enough for all the kids. So if you can grab one for yourself, and if there's extra, you can bring it to an adult in the church too. So do you want to come forward real quick and grab a jar? So here's the fun part. Shake them up. And imagine it like the way your mind usually is, just bouncing all around from one idea to the next idea. Look how full it is. You can't see through it at all. And for those of you who don't have a jar, just watch your own brain doing this on its own. And then let it start to sit still. And watch how bit by bit the different sparkles drift to the bottom. And some settle really quickly, but there's still so many left just floating there, gently floating downward to the bottom. Just keep sitting with that stillness. One thing I noticed is that some never seem to settle, but maybe they slow down a bit. See if you can notice your thoughts settling in your body as well. Instead of your mind being in 1,000 places, it being right here. Share a reading by Linda Barnes called Suspended Between. Suspended between all that was and all that might be, we struggle to find this very moment, to live this very moment. Let us sit together for a moment and savor this moment. Let us relish this between time where past meets future. Let us harbor a faith that reminds us that right now, right here, is enough.
Hello and good morning. My name is Mark Berlinger. I'm a tall, mid-20s person with dirty blonde hair, a black shirt, and very colorful pants. Now, during a moment of contemplative music, I invite you into our weekly ritual of stones and water. For those of you tuning in at home, I'd like to invite you into a moment of quiet contemplation. imagining the burdens of your heart lifted and held by our community as you listen to the music. For those of you with us in the room, you are welcome to come forward and take a stone representing any of the hopes and fears that you bring with you this morning, and drop that stone in the water, which represents the embrace of our community. Those of you who wish to have your joy or sorrow spoken aloud may write it on a paper at the table at the west end of the chancel and put it in the basket. We also receive joys and sorrows submitted online from the live stream team. I now invite you into this time of contemplation.
Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion towards ourselves and towards all living things. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the sufferings that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. Amen. Our hymn response is 1031 in the Teal hymnal, Filled with Loving Kindness. I invite you to rise or remain seated as you are comfortable. My reading this morning is from the Song of the Bird by Anthony DeMello, a Jesuit priest whose writings inspired me as I was beginning my meditation practice many years ago. In his book, he relates a quote attributed to the Sufi Bayazid about himself. I was a revolutionary when I was young, and all my prayer to God was, Lord, give me the energy to change the world. As I approached middle age and realized that half my life was gone without my changing a single soul, I changed my prayer to, Lord, give me the grace to change all those who come in contact with me, just my family and friends, and I shall be satisfied. Now that I am an old man and my days are numbered, my one prayer is, Lord, give me the grace to change myself. If I had prayed for this right from the start, I should not have wasted my life. I was first introduced to meditation when I was in college in the early 70s. And for those of you who are not old enough to remember the early 70s, they were a lot more like the 60s than they were the disco 70s. It was a time of all sorts of changes, and among the changes was that a lot of alternative religious practices from Asia and indigenous cultures were becoming fairly mainstream at the time. So during this time, I tried some of these practices, like yoga and meditation, at that time, but I did not make them any part of my spiritual practice. In fact, it's fair to say that I didn't really have any regular spiritual practice for many years. That changed in the mid-1990s. A friend knew I was searching and gave me a book called simply Meditation. The book was written by Eknath Easwaran, and he's the founder of the Blue Mountain Meditation Center in California. He is deceased at this time. My friend had been to a retreat at the Blue Mountain and recommended his method. Easwaran encourages the memorization of inspirational text and the slow repetition of these texts as you meditate. You don't focus on the meaning of the text while you're meditating, but use them along with your breath to let extraneous thoughts leave your consciousness. Reciting these passages silently helps me to focus on my breathing, while the positive message that they have becomes part of my consciousness due to my daily practice and the repetition. I've practiced this form of meditation fairly religiously for more than 25 years. I don't ordinarily think of meditation as a spiritual practice. For me, I think of it more in practical terms. But the word spiritual comes from the Latin root spiritus, which means breath or spirit. Meditation at its center, in basically every form I'm familiar with, is about breath. So I guess I've been rather short-sighted in thinking that it was practical and not spiritual. But meditation does give me many practical benefits. It lowers my heart rate and blood pressure. It calms me. On a more spiritual level, meditation allows me to be more present in the moment, even when I'm not meditating. By focusing on my breath and letting other thoughts go, practicing this skill over time, I learned to focus on what is happening now and to let go of the mistake I made yesterday or what I must do tomorrow. By focusing on the present, I can be more present to those around me. So why do I meditate? Well, all those benefits I just identified. It makes me calmer, more present in the moment, and gives me a sense of peace. And like the Sufi Bayazid, I meditate to give myself the grace to change myself.
Thank you very much, Violet, for that moment of tranquility. Helped a lot. Hello again. I have selected a reading from Heidi Priebe. It is not always a refusal to grow that keeps us stuck, but a refusal to grieve. Unprocessed pain about the past becomes unwarranted anxiety about the future. Until we understand why things happened the way they did, until we find a way to look back with acceptance, the present remains frozen in a state of resistance. We become incapable of seeing the future for what it is, different, unique, filled with new opportunities that are not colored with the shades of old hurt. What we don't lay to rest follows us forward, but what we grieve and let go of builds the foundation for an incredible new pathway to emerge. I believe meditation is often misconstrued as not thinking or emptying your mind. And whenever I would try that, I always found myself caught in the thought, well, is it a black nothing or a white nothing or maybe a gray? And maybe that works for some people, but not for me. And I think that's what it really is about, is finding what works for you. The aim is relief in service of growth. Enlightenment has many definitions. My personal one is letting the weights of the past go to move forward more easily. Now, my favorite method of practice, if you need one to take notes from, is sitting quietly in nature and addressing all those little check engine lights, the ones we like to tape over. Feelings. Warnings that are so hardwired into us, we've had them for eons, and we have gotten so good at ignoring them. Disregard them as long as you like, but they're like laundry. You must deal with them. The longer you run, bury, burn, or ignore them, the worse they will become, I promise you. Scars, wounds, grievances, and shames from the past that do not get addressed, properly grieved, or taken account of will bleed their way into the future. These things keep us from liking ourselves, and they keep us from being the people we ought to be. So our mind gives us anger, sadness, joy, and fear. These feelings and all of their other intricate interconnections are meant to be felt, it turns out. They are meant to be understood and worked with. We get so caught up in life that we can act on impulse without realizing why we did what we did or why that feeling we had is what we felt. When we take the time to understand where a feeling comes from, we learn a little bit more how to put the past to rest and move forward more easily. Now, meditation can also be a time when you are truly in the only moment that you have any control over. The past is written, the future has endless possibilities. You cannot control or change either of them to be what you want them to be. Right now, you have influence over your attention and your action. So enjoy the minute things. Take in the smell of what you're cooking. Feel every bristle of the toothbrush and the taste of the toothpaste. Really see every line in a loved one's smile. What you attend to is what you are choosing to value. It is always hard at first to value things, to be willing to be hurt, to be vulnerable, to lose that in some way. Well, you'll get nowhere if you don't try. So in these small moments that make up our lives, try to be consciously present with them. See what you find. Don't worry so much about the future or regret things from the past, but actively choose something in the present. Not to say ignore planning for the future and sell all of your possessions. Planning is essential still. Just try to remember that planning is only in service of having better present moments in the future. We don't live in imagined futures, and getting caught in the pain or nostalgia of the past can prevent us from enjoying what we have. Nothing lasts forever. Bear things while you must, enjoy things while you can, and if you don't agree with me, good. I hope you can go out and find what you do agree with. But I hope that when you do, you are enraptured by it. But do try to be kind, be loving, be attentive.
Thanks, Violet. Hiya, my name's Sue Pereira, and I forgot to do this earlier, but I'm a short woman with white skin, brown glasses, and short gray hair, wearing a highlighter green dress that you probably can't really see very much of. Anyway, thank you for letting me share my interpretation of how meditation and spirituality intersect. I began looking for a spiritual home as an adult when my children were young. I wanted to introduce them to the world of religion, and I stumbled upon the UU Church of Columbia. I had few expectations of what attending service might hold for me, and found that as I sat and listened, I was not in my own head for 1 hour. At that time, nearly 25 years ago, I was a worker who spent their day talking, reading, and then thinking some more, and reading some more, and then talking some more, and then home to 2 young kids. The busier I got, I found it increasingly difficult to quiet my mind during restful periods. Many a night were racked by earworms of favorite songs, or the worst songs, repeating themselves over and over until I thought I'd scream. But by sitting in service, I didn't think. Not only did church present a place and a time to be quiet for me, but the minister's messages were like putting on new glasses, and I could see clearly nearly every time I left. His messages, though brilliant, were nearly irrelevant, so grateful I was for an hour of not thinking. Some of you might recognize a phrase from one of our former ministers crop up later. Fast forward some years, and my busy teenagers were less interested in attending church or religious education, and my attendance at UUCC dwindled. However, during those years, I discovered yoga and noticed that doing yoga was another time that I could not think and not talk. Too busy making sure I was holding steady and breathing and shifting ever so slightly. And as I did more and more yoga, I noticed, as I walked out of class, a sense of nothing can bother me presence. Tension in my shoulders and back would be gone for at least the rest of that day. If you've done any yoga, If you've done any yoga, you'll notice it is really a meditation to movement. So as I did yoga, I also meditated on and off, and I tried to pay attention to my breath on so many occasions, but try as I might, I could not figure out how to clear my mind. It took me a long time to really understand how to pay attention to my breath and to be able to catch myself thinking and to let that go. I used to think to meditate meant you brought a problem to the chair or pillow or mat, and you thought on it like Pooh in his thinking spot. Think, 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 and a resolution would reveal itself. Well, that was not it. Not for me, in the classic sense. And finally, after years of practicing over and over, I felt comfortable sitting in silence. I learned how to find my plumb line from my sit bones to the top of my head with the right chair and the right support. And this is what I noticed. Resolutions often did come after meditation. Problems felt less severe and less fraught. Sometimes I would realize many problems were not mine to solve. By being quiet and not thinking, I cannot judge myself or anyone else. By being quiet and not thinking, it's possible to be without fear for a few minutes. We can let our sadness have a little lie-in while we meditate. Because when we meditate in our stillness, alone and together, when we are in the same environment, hearing the same things, noticing different things, we've done it together. Trucks rushing by on the highway can be a distraction for some, the low thrum of a busy life sedating for others, but we all experience it together. Sharing quiet and communion with others makes me feel connected to my life and my surroundings and grateful for those connections that exist in many forms. That is the gift of meditation, giving the gift of not analyzing or deciphering just for a little while. To show that it is possible, the gift of quiet, the gift of being your own best friend instead of your worst enemy. And what are we looking for ultimately when we go to church? A connection to the greater community, to feel more alive in our own life, to be inspired, to be more thoughtful, to be a witness for others who might need our support, to be present for the joys and sorrows of living, To me, meditation is a spiritual practice because by lifting the veil for a few minutes, when we are in touch with our most profound oneness, without filters or armor, without worry or fear, we can find stillness, whether that's alone or together. Thank you. Please join me in singing hymn number 352, Find a Stillness. You may rise or remain seating as you are most comfortable.